And tonight, Mohammed has come to the mountain. Welcome to Vail, Mohammed. Maybe you can set the scene for us. What was, Yemen was mired in civil war. What was it like? How did it change? And what caused you to start thinking about getting out of there?
Thank you, George, first of all. Thank you so much for this amazing introduction. And guys, I'm extremely happy to be with you here today. This is my first time ever to be in Colorado. And I've been traveling a lot around the United States and outside of the United States. And I think Colorado is the most beautiful place I've ever seen in my life. But speaking about Yemen, whenever someone asks me about what's Yemen and what's the conflict in Yemen, I really want to say one thing. I wish if you know Yemen before the war, not after the war. Yemen, people know how to can be happy without spending money. Coffee, the way how you know coffee, Yemen is very popular about it. Actually, the name Mocha came from Yemen. There is a village in Yemen called Mocha. That's how Yemeni Mocha is famous, actually. The music in the Arab world was actually spread by Yemen. Things has been changed a lot in Yemen because Yemen is a poor country. And it's actually, as you said, in the borders of Yemen is all these wealthy countries. Saudi Arabia, Oman, and other countries. We never had a democracy in Yemen. So let me tell you a little bit about how I've been raised in Yemen, and that's what I know about my country.
Right.
I have both of my parents are medical doctors. All my siblings are medical doctors. I'm the only one who's not a doctor in my family. I think it's because of my disability. If you read my book, you will know that I have a disability in the right side of my hand and the right side of my body. In Yemen, we've been taught not about democracy. We've been taught not about how we need to live in freedom, but more about how we can be afraid from others. We're always othering the others. Whenever something happened bad in Yemen, we don't blame the government or ourselves, but we blame the others. For example, when the Arab Spring happened in Yemen, the former president of Yemen, he went to the University of Sana'a, where I studied, and he gave a speech. And he said, what's happening in the Arab Spring, it happened because of Israel and Jews. That's how we've been raised. Now, the conflict in Yemen, it happened because Yemen used to be two countries, not one country. And I'm speaking before 1990. Yemen used to be north of Yemen and south of Yemen. My dad, for example, is from north of Yemen. My mom is from south of Yemen. How Yemen became one country didn't come by peace. It came by war. And that's the worst case scenario, that a country can be one country, because usually what will happen after decades or years is a conflict. And that's what's happening right now. I'm a Muslim, but I've never been taught to be Shia or Sunni, which is sects of Islam. My dad, he's actually Shia. My mom is actually Sunni. So he can call me Sushi. But we never had mosques actually for Shia or Sunni. We only have mosques. You go to pray, you don't care about who's next to you. Right now, the situation in Yemen different. Someone like me from the north of Yemen, I can't go anymore to south of Yemen. There is mosques right now in Yemen for Shia, and there is now mosques for Sunni. I left Yemen 7 years ago, and since then the war is still happening in Yemen. Now I'm with you here today, and we have electricity. I don't know if my family have actually electricity now in their home. There is no education. There is no hospitals. My dad is not working anymore as a doctor. So the life in Yemen became very hard because of the war that's happening in Yemen. But here's the fact. The war in Yemen is not about Yemenis. It's a war that happened from different countries, and they're doing their wars in Yemen. The war in Yemen is actually controlled by Saudi Arabia in one side and Iran in the other side. And they do the war in the blood of Yemenis. The people who's losing everything is Yemenis, not Iranians, not Saudis. It's actually my people. So that's what's happening right now in Yemen. People in Yemen, they cannot leave. And I really appreciate the introduction that you said about me. And people say that, I have a great story. Today I was having a lunch with an amazing friends that I met today. And I told them that my story is not unique. I just been able to get out from Yemen and tell you what's happening. Trust me, if you were able to know more Yemenis, they will tell you more stories like this. Yemenis, they cannot leave Yemen. Imagine like this. All the countries of the world, they don't allow Yemenis to travel unless if they have visa. Then how can Yemenis have visa if they don't have embassies of these countries there? So nobody can go out from Yemen. It's like a big jail. And I'm lucky that I'm out, but I'm also feeling guilty because I know that a lot of Yemenis are suffering because of the war.
Let's talk about, you grew up as a Muslim. A lot of very fundamentalist Muslims teach that people of other faiths are infidels. You shouldn't associate with them. They're bad people. What caused your conversion to becoming an interfaith activist? There was an English teacher named Luke who was very kind of instrumental in that, wasn't there?
Yes, and I would like to speak about Luke definitely, but I just want to say one point. In Yemen, as a Muslim, I've been taught that only Muslims will go to heaven. Jews or Christians, other people who are not Muslim, will not go to heaven. Trust me, I met people here in the United States who believe also the same thing about their own faiths. Right. And they believe only, for example, that Christians will go to heaven and not Muslims, not Jews. So in every place, in every country in the world, you will find people who have extreme views about the others. In my case, although that my both parents are medical doctors and we are very educated, but we still was living in an environment where we feel the need of having all the world to be Muslim. The language of converting others to be Muslims, it comes from love, not hate. We think about that from this perspective. We think if I go to you and I tell you I wanted to be Muslim and you converted to be Muslim, I did something good for you more than I did something good for me. That's what happened to me when I met the teacher, Luke. I was 23 years old. I didn't have friends in my childhood because of my disability. A lot of kids was making fun of the way how my hand looks like, the way how I walk. So my friends was actually American movies, an American series. Britney Spears also was one of my friends. I learned English, and when I was 23 years old, I was able finally to practice English with Luke. Luke was like a father figure to me. I was able to talk to him about things that I'm not able to talk about with my father about it. For example, I was able to talk to him about girls and like feelings and love. But in one day, Luke told me something. After we became close friends, he told me, Mohammed, I'm leaving Yemen. And I felt bad that finally a friend that I created for myself, he will leave. And in our culture in Yemen, whenever you have a friend and they're leaving, you want to give them something so they will remember you when they go back to their countries. So I start searching for a gift that I will give it to Luke. When he go back to England, he will remember me. And I start thinking, should I give him a perfume? Should I give him a ring? But I was actually in the mosque praying for Friday. And the Imam started giving speech. And it was a beautiful speech. But by the end of the prayer, he started praying against Jews and Christians. And in that moment, I know what kind of gift I will give to Luke. I will convert him to Islam. And when I convert him to Islam, I will save his soul from hell to heaven. And that's the best gift you can give it to anyone. I went to Luke and I gave him a copy of the Quran in English. And I told him, if you care about our friendship, I wanted to read it. By the way, at that time he already read it, but he didn't tell me that he already have it. But he tells me, sure, but in one case. And I said, what is it? I will never forget that. He gave me the Bible, But he didn't give it to me in the same way I gave him the Quran. In Yemen, you can't have Bibles. He gave it to me hiding in a green plastic bags, and he told me, be careful, don't let anyone see it. And that's also, later on, I will know about the discrimination that happened in Yemen for Christians and other people who convert outside of Islam. I went back home and I started reading the Bible, not because I want to know more about Christianity. It's actually the opposite. I've been taught as a kid that the Bible is a holy book, but it has been actually changed by religious leaders, and they make it more not holy anymore. So I wanted to challenge Luke, and I want to find things in the Bible where I say to him, aha, my book is much better than your book, and that's why you need to convert to Islam. From that moment, as soon as I started reading the Bible, nobody taught me, and he didn't tell me, that the Bible has Old Testament, New Testament. I never thought that if I start reading the Bible from the beginning, I'm actually reading the Jewish Torah. And that's what happened. From the first page, I tried to call Luke and start asking questions from the Old Testament. I remember his reaction, he said, Muhammad, can you go to the middle of the book? And I said, what kind of people are reading the book from the middle? Like, why do you want me to read it from the beginning? And he told me, because you're reading now the Torah. Now, forget what even I learned about Christianity. What I learned about Judaism is also something more awful or more bad. It's basically anti-Semitic. I wanted to know more about one thing that I've been taught back in school and in media, why Jews and Christians hate us. By reading the Bible, I started having this kind of thing inside me, and I think it comes really from God. I always been a spiritual person who wanted really to have connection with God. And I felt I want to know more about Christianity by meeting Christians. In Yemen, I was lucky to find Ethiopians, Indians, and even Americans who's working in Yemen, and I can ask them about Christianity. But it was really hard for me to find Jews. The question is, how can I find Jews and ask them, why do you hate us? At that moment, I found something called Facebook.
Yeah, now Facebook has gotten this reputation of dividing people. The algorithm is based on conflict, but you found a way to build a bridge through Facebook, right?
I was really surprised, honestly, how people are using Facebook here in the United States versus how people are using Facebook back in Yemen and other countries. Facebook is a tool of hope and tool of communication with the other world that you don't know anything about them. Think about it like this. Without Facebook, we will only receive the news from the propaganda from the government that we have in our country. For example, Yemen. Through Facebook, I was able to reach out to Jews and I asked them, actually, my message, I was sending messages to Jews, and it was copy-paste message. I was saying like this. I was saying, greetings from Yemen. My name is Mohammed. I know that you are a Jew. I know that you live in Israel. What do you think of Muslims? What do you think of Yemenis? Yours sincerely, Mohammed. So,
and somebody in Israel was saying, look at this, Meshuggah. Right?
Imagine how many people responded to my message. It's like a Nigerian prince asks you for like $1 million or something like that.
Yeah, right.
But for me, I was so lucky because people responded to my message through Facebook. And that's the amazing tool about Facebook, how you can actually communicate with people who can actually change your life. The first person who responded to my message is named Nimrud bin Zayev. At that time, he was living in Tel Aviv. Now he lives in Pennsylvania, in the United States. And he responded by saying to me, I don't hate Yemenis and I don't hate Muslims. Actually, I have a lot of friends who are Muslims. And through Facebook, he introduced me to his friends who are actually doing interfaith. That's how I started knowing about interfaith. I didn't know that there is something called interfaith exist. I didn't know that actually you can gather people together instead of separating them. I was in a group on Facebook for interfaith leaders from around the world, and everyone speaks about the importance of interfaith. And for me, for the first time in my life, I finally had my aha. That's why God gave me my disability. You see, when I was a kid, and kids was making fun of my disability, I was crying, and I asked God, why me? Why did you choose me to have such a disability? Why I can't ride a bicycle? Why I can't play football? And my parents told me, because you have something special that will come to you in the future. And at that moment, when I was on Facebook with interfaith activists from all around the world, finally I realized it's because of my disability I learned how to speak English. And because I learned how to speak English, I was able to meet Luke, and he gave me the Bible. And now I am in Facebook. So I decided to use Facebook in a different way. And the way how I used it is start posting about the similarities between Islam, Christianity, and Judaism. That's how I started my interfaith journey.
So here you are, this interfaith activist, and you start going to conferences around in Europe and other places. And at what point did you realize this was going to get you in very serious trouble at home?
Thank you. Actually, when I started doing my activism on Facebook, I was very happy. I found purpose of my life, but then there was a war between Israel and Gaza. And because of the war between Israel and Gaza, everyone started to be sensitive. Muslims start to be sensitive in the interfaith group. Jews start to be sensitive. And one person from that group itself, he sent me a message. He said, have you ever met a Jew in person? And I said, no. He said, well, they are nice to you because you are only online. If you meet them face to face, you will see something different. That's why I decided that I want to travel to meet Jews in face to face. So I opened Google, and I said, I'm Muslim, I want to meet a Jew. So I searched for something called Muslim Jewish Conference. For some reason, there is actually something called Muslim Jewish Conference. And it was in Bosnia, Sarajevo. As a Yemeni, you cannot travel to Bosnia. Because we don't have an embassy even in Yemen, even before the war for Bosnia. So I contacted the conference, and they were really surprised because I was the only Arab person who applied for the conference in that year. And they said, we were happy to have you, but we cannot offer you a flight ticket. You need to fly by yourself, and you need to figure out how you can come to Bosnia. What we can offer for you is a hotel. And it was a lot of money. And at that time, I wasn't working. So I was thinking, is it worth it to lose all this money that I have just to see a Jew in my life? But I decided to do it. So I traveled to Turkey, to Istanbul. And from Istanbul, I applied for a visa in the Bosnian embassy, and I traveled to Bosnia. And in Bosnia, I met the first Jew in my life, who wasn't only a Jew. He was actually a Jew, Israeli, and gay. It's like 3 in 1 from someone from Yemen. This experience itself, it changed my life a lot. I had a lot of conversations, and not all of them was positive. Some conversations was negative. But I met people who really changed my life. One of them, I spoke with him only for 5 minutes. He was dancing in the conference, a break dance. It was the first time for me to see someone dancing break dance and say, what's he doing? I didn't know that this person eventually, he will help me to escape from Al-Qaeda in Yemen.
Wow. Well, let's talk about your escape. You went when the conflict got pretty hairy, and you had all of these guys, these fundamentalists, running around with automatic weapons in the streets, and you decided to get out of home and go to the capital of Sana'a. How did that all come about?
So, and I was talking today also in the lunch about it with some friends, that my mom quit her work because of me. She always was take care of me. And my parents was focusing on me. I have 4 siblings. And my 4 siblings, they didn't have the same care that my parents was giving to me. I never traveled alone before Bosnia without my family. And I never left alone away from my family. In Yemen, we are a family culture community. You can live with your parents and your siblings until even you are 30 and 40 years old sometimes. For me, because of my interfaith activism, After I traveled to Bosnia, to Jordan, to different conferences, I started feeling that I don't want just to do online interfaith activism. I want to change my own community. And when you want to change your own community, you do it from love. And if you love someone, you will do it for them the first. And for me, my family was the first thing. So I went to them and I tried to change their perspective about Jews and Christians. It didn't work well.
Yeah.
My family, actually, in the beginning, they refused for me to go to the conference when I wanted to go to the Muslim-Jewish conference. And they said, why are you going? You are not going. I said, I'm going to convert people to Islam. And they agreed about that, and they allowed me to travel. Then I went to my friends, and I started talking to them about interfaith, about anti-Semitism, about why it's important for us to understand the other, and not othering the other. I did the Skype call between some of my friends in Yemen and other friends in Israel. And because of that, a rumor came in Yemen about me that I'm an agent from Mossad. Mossad is the Israeli intelligence system. When my dad received the news, he was very angry. Not because he believed that I'm an agent from Mossad, but because I bring danger to my family. And that's what happened. After that, I started receiving threats almost every week, on Facebook, on person, on phone calls. When the war started in Yemen, my situation became much worse. And I had two choices. Either to stay with my family, but I'm worried if an extreme group will come, and they will not just kill me, they will kill also my family, or I will be away from my family, and at least I will be able to manage things. If it happened, it happened to me. So as you mentioned, I traveled from Sana'a to Aden because I thought that I would be more safer in Aden, and also I would be far away from my family. The things that happened in Aden was really horrible. Instead of escaping from the Houthis, which is one extreme group, I was among Al-Qaeda in Yemen, which is another extreme group. I was hiding in a small apartment. I didn't have food. At that time, I was lazy. I didn't know how to cook. Now I know the importance of knowing how to cook. I didn't have electricity, and I didn't have even water. And I started reaching, at that time I was working for an organization called Oxfam, and I asked my organization if they can help me out to be evacuated. And they said, sorry, we cannot help you. I started reaching out to my family, to my friends, and nobody is able to help me out. I was hiding actually in the bathroom of the apartment because I thought if Al-Qaeda will come searching, they will not find me, they will not come to the bathroom, and I will be safe in the bathroom. I started praying to God in the bathroom. And I asked God to help me out. And this crazy idea came to me, which is post on Facebook. That's what I did. I didn't have anything except my phone, and I wrote on Facebook, is there anyone can help me out to escape from my apartment? And I thought really the people who will answer is people from my community, people in my family. The amazing thing that 4 Americans, that I met them through the conferences that I'm going in Bosnia, in Jordan, and others, the 4 of them, they said, yes, we want to help you out. And I connect the 4 of them together, and I said, help me out. Actually, one of them, which is Justin Hafter, and Justin lives in San Francisco now, I didn't even notice him or contact with him, because when I met him in Jordan, I asked him, what do you do? And he said, I do stand-up comedy shows. So I thought to myself, he will never be able to help me out to escape from Al-Qaeda. What happened is Megan, at that time, she was living in Tel Aviv. She sent an email to all her friends, including Justin, which she know. And she said, does anyone of you know anyone in Yemen who can help a friend of mine to escape from his apartment in Aden? She didn't know that Justin knows me. So when Justin saw the email, he replied with happy, and he says, actually, I met this wonderful human being named Mohammed Al Samawi, and I think he will be able to help your friend. And she said to him, Justin, I am talking about Muhammad. It's the same person. So the 4 of them They don't know anything about Yemen. I remember the first question actually they asked me. They said, "Where do you live?" I said, "Well, I live near this place in Aden." And they said, yeah, but what's your building number?" I said, "What?" It said building number. I said, "Oh my God, they don't know anything about Yemen, because in Yemen, we don't have numbers for buildings. We only have buildings." No, I mean, like, if you want to come to my home in Yemen, I will tell you that I am the home next the restaurant, second door, blue. That's how you know where is my home. So they teach me how to use Google Map. That was my first time ever to use Google Maps.
Yeah.
So
Basically, you're crowdsourcing your escape from Yemen with these friends on Facebook.
But the thing is, the more that I was talking to them, the more that I realized that they don't know anything about evacuation. They don't know anything about Yemen, and they don't know how they will do it. But they did one thing, and they never lost it, which is they always give me the hope that I will be safe. And because of that, I didn't kill myself.
Yeah.
The truth, when I was in my apartment in Aden, I saw a video of someone from the north, like me, being captured by Al-Qaeda. And I remember how they killed him. And all I was thinking about what my mom will do if she saw a video of me being killed. And I thought maybe it's better for myself if I kill myself. But these people, because they never lost hope, I never lost it. In 13 days, they were able to do a military operation, not only by myself, for me, but another 100 Yemeni was able to escape. We were the first Yemenis to escape from the war in Yemen. And as Melanie said, we crossed actually the Red Sea in Passover. So that's why now my friends call me Moshe.
But your friends, they didn't know diddly squat about Yemen, but they knew how to twist a few arms in Washington, right?
It's amazing what they did.
There was some assistant secretary of state named Anthony Blinken. Whatever happened to that guy?
And that's what I said. Like, it's amazing what they did, because they never said, like, we cannot do it. They were actually reaching out even to ambassadors of Russia and the United States and asked them, hey, we heard that Russia is doing evacuation for their own citizens in Yemen. Can you take one Yemeni with you? They reached out to Tony Blinken. They reached out to Senator Mark Kirk from Illinois. And I'm really lucky that Tony Blinken, Senator Mark Kirk, both of them want to help. I'm not an American. In America, they didn't do an evacuation for Americans in Yemen. It's one of the few countries who didn't do evacuations for their own citizens in Yemen. Mm. The fact that they were able to say, we want to help him, it was an amazing thing for me. With the help of Anthony Blinken, Mark Kirk, the Indian Navy was doing evacuation for the Indians who was living in Yemen.
Now, wait a minute. You can't get out with the Americans, but you find an Indian Navy ship. So now we got India in the mix?
India in the mix, and India came because they were doing the evacuation. And it's the only country who said, maybe we will take him with us. All other countries were saying, no, we will not take a Yemeni, especially if it's someone, an interfaith activist, if someone will make our own evacuation for our own citizen in risk. So most of the country would say no. India is the only country who said maybe. And I will never forget how the Indian Navy did it. When they start doing the evacuation, because they are not that close to other countries who's doing the conflict in Yemen, Saudi Arabia or Iran, they didn't allow the Indian Navy ship to be in the port. The Indian Navy ship was in the middle of the sea. And the only way that you can go to there is by fishing boats. I remember when Justin found on Twitter that the Indian Navy started doing the operation. And he told me, Mohammed, you need to go to the port immediately. I went to the port and I found another 100 Yemeni wanted to be in this kind of military ship. But how we can do it? There was an Indian lady who has a list of who are be evacuated, and all of them are Indians. And I went to her, and I know that Anthony Blinken was helping, I know that Mark Kirk was helping, so I said, my name will be in the list. And I went to her and I said, Mohammed Al Samawi, and my name was not in the list. And they start doing the evacuation. And all what I'm thinking about, I will not make it. It will be the end. The amazing thing about what that happened is the fishermen start taking Yemenis to the Indian military operation, to the big ship. And then suddenly a spotlight came on us, to the fishing boat. And someone in the microphone was saying, Mr. Mohammed Al Samawi, Mr. Mohammed Al Samawi, are you there? And all the Yemenis, who's this, who's this? And I said, it's me, it's me. They came and they take me first, and they take all the Yemenis to the ship. I will never forget what India did. They start playing Indian music, so we don't hear the airstrikes. And they gave blankets to kids and women, no matter if they are Yemenis or Indians. I never seen something like this beautiful. And we start shipping. The last memory that I remember from my country is a land of fire. I see the fire everywhere, and we're moving in the ship. I was sitting aside with other Yemeni guys, and then a Navy soldier, he was saying, Mr. Mohammed Al Samawi, Mr. Mohammed Al Samawi, and everyone like, who's this? Why everyone is asking about him? And I said, it's me. He said, like, the captain of the ship wants to speak with you. And again, all the Yemenis, who are you, man? And I went to the captain of the ship, and he said, I want to make sure that you are Mohammed Al Samawi. And the ship went all the way from Yemen to Djibouti, to Africa. We arrived to Africa with no visa, with no documentation, and the Djiboutian government, they didn't know what to do with us. So they put all of us in jail. When we were in jail, and that's the difference for the 4 people who helped me out, anyone else will say, okay, he's now safe. At least he's not in Yemen, let him figure it out. They didn't do that. Daniel Binkus, one of the 4 people, he used Facebook again, and he said, do you know anyone in Djibouti? And a friend of him from Sierra Leone, he said, I used to know someone actually from Djibouti, so he reached out to him. And this guy came to the jail, and he said, where is Mr. Mohammed Al Samawi? Exactly. The reaction from the Yemenis was hilarious. But I was out from the jail. Unfortunately, the other Yemenis, they didn't get out. Eventually, they get out, and they put them in the refugee camp. I was in Djibouti. I didn't have luggage. I didn't have any clothes with me. I didn't have money. I didn't have anything. And at that moment, I realized how much these 4 people are unique. They start booking for me a hotel. They booked for me Sheraton Hotel in Djibouti. And after that, they start thinking about what will happen to me next. And they start asking, like, how can we help him to go to some safe place? Because in Djibouti, they gave me only a period of 30 days to stay in Djibouti. After that, I need to leave. Then they asked me this magical question, which is, Mohammed, do you want to come to the United States? I said, of course I want to come to the United States. The question is how? They start reaching out to their own contact. And that's where AGC played a huge role in me coming to the United States. AGC, they didn't know anything about me, but they know that I'm an activist who's trying to do work about different religions. They gave me an invitation to come to the United States, along with other organizations who I'm really grateful for, and universities like Stanford University. I had 7 invitations. I went to the embassy, and they called my number, and I went there, and they were looking to me. I don't have any documentations, nothing at all. I didn't think they would give me the visa at all. By the end of the interview, they said, congratulations, you will have a visa. I told Daniel, Megan, Justin, and Natasha, I have the visa, but I don't have money. They said, actually, Daniel said, a friend of mine, his name Chris. If I'm not mistaken, I think he lives in Colorado. Now I remember, like, I need to call him. And Chris, he didn't know anything about me. We were not friends on Facebook, but he heard from Daniel about what happened to me, and he said, if anyone deserves a business class ticket from Djibouti to the United States, it will be him. So he booked for me a business class ticket, and you can imagine when I went to the airport in Djibouti, everyone was looking to me, dirty clothes, no luggage, and a business class ticket. I arrived to United States. I arrived in San Francisco, and that's it. A new journey started. It was like a dream, honestly, when I arrived to the airport. By the way, when Chris booked my flight to United States, he did a mistake. He was generous by booking for me a business class ticket, but he made a mistake by buying only one-way ticket for me. As a Yemeni, you need to have two-way ticket. So when I was in transit in Germany, the police came to me and they said, like, sorry, but you cannot travel because you don't have two-way tickets. And I said, okay, that's it. And then after a few minutes, they came and they said, you can go. Until now, I don't know the explanation for it, but my lawyer said maybe because they were afraid that I can apply for asylum in Germany. And they said it's the Americans who gave him the visa, let them deal with him. So I arrived to the United States, and the truth is, as soon as I arrived, I started having nightmares. I was not able to sleep for a while, and I wanted to be away from interfaith. My dream was to work at Starbucks.
To work at Starbucks?
My dream was to work at Starbucks. I loved, when I went to Starbucks the first time, I remember like when I was seeing the people taking the coffee from the cashier. Everyone is happy when they receive their coffee. And I said, I want to be the person who do that. But it didn't happen. What happened to me, and again, God always has a plan that's different from, we can plan everything in our lives, but always not in our control. It's in God's control. The more that I was talking about my story, the more that I see how much my story has been affecting people when I talk about it. One day I was talking about the story, and a producer named Mark Platt, he is the one who made the movie called La La Land. I consider him as a father to me, honestly, and as soon as he heard me speaking, he said, I want to make a movie about you. And I thought he's joking, but it was true. Right now, Mark Platt, Steven Spielberg, and Josh Singer, both of them are making the movie The Fox Hunt. And all of them are...
But the strike has kind of held that up, though, hasn't it?
Yes. They were very honest with me, especially Mark Platt.
Yeah.
He told me the story is about you, but based on true events. Movies, usually they fiction things happen. And he saw how much I am really into the truth of what happened exactly. And he told me, maybe you can write a book. And that's how I actually wrote my book. So The Fox Hunt has been now translated to 7 languages.
7 languages, wow.
And I think I am the only Muhammad who was in the cover of the Jewish Journal. But I was talking to you, George, in the green room about why did I create Abrahamic House. America is my country now. By the way, by the end of this year, I will be able to apply for the American nationality, and I'm really grateful for this.
Good for you.
But I don't want to escape anymore. I already escaped from Yemen. I don't want to escape from the United States. When the event happened in the Capitol Hill, when some protesters was angry from the results of the elections, it gives me the same feeling that happened in Yemen in 2014. Do you know how the Houthis came to Sana'a and they controlled Yemen now? They came to the parliament of Yemen and they said they want to make sure freedom will come to Yemenis and they want democracy to still happening. And since then, Yemen been in a war. As soon as I saw what happened, I couldn't resist not to do something. So I created the Abrahamic House. Abrahamic House, the idea about it is that we have houses around the United States and we allow people to apply for fellowship. Young people between 21 years old and 35 years old. And we allow 4 individuals from different religions, Islam, Judaism, Christianity, and Baha'i. The 4 of them, they live together. We gave them education about anti-Semitism, about Islamophobia, racism, and other topics that we are actually care a lot what's happening in our community and our country right now. And after that, we asked them to invite their own communities, but not in the same way we did it. We don't ask them to educate them by give them courses. We ask them to do events. Through these events, we do the change in their own communities. So Abrahamic now has been exist for 3 years. And I'm so glad to say that we have more than 400 members, community members in Abrahamic House. Thank you. We saw people coming to us and they shared with us their life story, how they used to be anti-Semitic, and how when they come to Abrahamic House, they shifted their mind. We saw people who've been Islamophobic and they changed their mind when they come to Abrahamic House. So it became a place where I hope that America, what I know about it, it will keep to be the same. I spoke one time about one thing and then I was reviewing today about it. And I totally agree with what I said there, which is the most amazing thing about America is freedom of speech, but we need to fight for it. And we need to fight that, we need to exist to each other. And instead of othering the others, we need gathering, not othering. So that's why I created Abrahamic House.
You talked about anti-Semitism a bit. You grew up with it, obviously, in your country. In the United States, we're witnessing a kind of a dramatic rise in anti-Semitism. According to AJC's State of Anti-Semitism in America report earlier this year, 4 in 10 American Jews feel their status is less secure than it was a year ago. 1 in 4 American Jews reported being personally targeted by anti-Semitism in 2022. What does your history tell you about how to address this problem?
Well, since I came to the United States, I've never been attacked physically except one time. I was speaking for Florida International University, FIU. I was speaking for Hillel, which is the Jewish Union for students. And some other students, they were angry that someone named Mohammed speaks for Hillel in Florida International University. So one of them, he attacked me physically. And I think that, I remember when I was giving the talk, it was like this. I was giving the talk like this, and I know that there's something happening because the other group, when they come to the lecture, they were not listening to my message. Because my message only about love and compassion. I never speak about hate. And I can tell they were angry for no reason. And I remember the Jewish students who were sitting in the class, hearing me speaking, they were really afraid. They know what will happen. And I can't imagine how many times they living this in the university. For example, a lot of the students, they left the class. Jewish students left the class because they know that what will happen next. But I had it, maybe just a sample of what Jewish students have it every day in their own way because they are Jewish. In Abrahamic House, we receive the same thing. So there is a fatwa now against me. Mm-hmm. And the fatwa says that I'm trying to convert people to Judaism. I wish if they know that I cannot convert people to Judaism. I cannot even convert myself. Yeah. They say that Abrahamic House is a house where we're trying to spread prostitution. These kind of stereotypes and hate messages against Abrahamic House, it tell me one thing: we are in the right direction. Yeah. We are doing the impact. Yeah. It says that if you're not doing an impact, nobody will come against you. And I think that's why we are having an impact, big impact in Abrahamic House.
At the end of your book, you quote both the Quran and the Talmud. From the Quran, whoever saves a life, it is as if he has saved mankind entirely. From the Talmud, whoever saves a life, it is as if he saved an entire world. Is part of your message that what binds us together is more strong than what tears us apart?
100%. When Daniel, Megan, Justin, and Natasha helped me out, they didn't care that I am Muslim. They didn't care that I'm from Yemen. They didn't care that they didn't know almost nothing about me. They only cared about one thing, that I'm a human being, and I need to be free. And I think that's all what's happening in the Bible, in the Torah, in the Quran, in the Talmud. In my theory for Abrahamic House, when I actually came to the United States, I was talking to Daniel, and I told him, why did you help me out? And he told me that his grandmother was trying to escape from the Holocaust, and she was hoping if someone will say, yes, I will help her. And he said her story affecting him, and since then he cannot say no for anyone who needs help. And I told him, how can I pay you back of everything that you did to me? He said, you don't need to pay me anything. You just need to change people's lives as you're doing right now. And that's why in Abrahamic House, we say that if you change one person's perspective from hate and ignorance to love and compassion, it's like you change the whole world.
Yeah. Thank you. We have time for questions from our audience. Thank you, Mohammed.
Thank you both. First, I'll say thank you, not a question. Just curious, what's happened to your family in Yemen?
Do you want me to answer now, or do you want me to have more questions? So you asked about what's happening to my family right now? The truth is that that's the hardest question I can answer to. But always it's the first question that people ask me about. People say that I am a good author and I wrote a good book, but I think if anyone needs to write a book, it will be my mother. She gave up everything in her life for us, and also my dad, but my mom did it in a big way. And right now, still 7 years, I feel guilty of surviving, that I am here with you today. And that's why when I start speaking, if you notice that, I start mentioning electricity, because all my mind is what's happening in my family. And every time I call my mom and my siblings and I say, how are you doing? And I'm worried about you. They said, we are worried about you. Are you okay? So my family right now, they have been living in the war for 7 years. They get used to it. They know how to do it. Every week, for example, they ask for a water tank to come to give them water. For electricity, they're using a solar system, Chinese system that's not the best, and give them 3 hours, 4 hours a day. So life is a little bit hard for them, for sure. I try to let them go out from Yemen and go to other countries. It's impossible for Yemenis, and it's really hard. Right now, we have a refugee crisis all around the world. And thank you for your question. I know that you're asking me about my family, but I want also to ask about, I hope all of you think about refugees when they come to the United States. They don't come to the United States to take your jobs or to take advantage of the economy of the United States or other world. They come here because they want to have a second chance. So for my family, for example, I tried to apply for them to go to Canada. I applied for them to go to other places. It didn't work out. I hope when I be American, I will be able to have something called family reunion, where my family can come and visit me, and then we will take it from there.
That's good.
Can you give us a little of the history, the background of how this war started?
Good question. I hope if there is one person can give a great answer about it, but I'm not a politician person. I'm an interfaith activist. The war in Yemen started because the Houthis, when they went to the parliament, as I mentioned to you, the issue for us is the Arab Spring when started. It gave us finally freedom of the people in Yemen to speak. We don't want the president to be president. But the issue for us is we never been taught about democracy. We never had a replacement. So if we say for a president, we don't want it to be the president, then who will be the president? We don't know how to do elections. We don't know how we can accept the elections results. And that's why when the Houthis came to the parliament and they say, we need to protect the freedom for Yemenis, a lot of Yemenis believe them because they believe they want to do freedom for Yemenis. So the war in Yemen really is part of economical war also. You were speaking about Aden. It's one of the most important ports in the whole world. Yeah. Do you know, for example, that any ship want to go to Israel, it needs to go through there? Imagine if you have control in this ship, what kind of control you will have between the West and the East. That's why, right now, Saudi Arabia and Emirates, they really don't care about what's happening in Sana'a, which is north of Yemen, where the Houthis is controlling Yemen, because that's not the priority for them. They always said that we're doing the war in Yemen because we want to make Yemen free of Houthis. I wish if that's true. The Saudis, they just had a peace deal with the Houthis. And do you know what the peace deal says? The Houthis controlling most part of Yemen. The south of Yemen, the port, is controlled by Saudi Arabia and Emirates. That's the real goal, why there is a war in Yemen, from my perspective. And again, I'm not a politician, and a lot of Yemenis, by the way, will tell you the same thing. A lot of us, we don't know why there is a war in Yemen, but there is a war in Yemen.
Do a lot of Yemenis feel like they're pawns in a struggle between Iran, who supports the Houthis, and Saudi Arabia, which is opposing the Houthis?
Even here in the United States, if you go to see Yemeni community, you will see dividing.
Yeah.
There's no one way will say someone like this and this. For me, I blame both parties. They both are spread extremism,
Yeah.
spread hate. My mom, as I said, she's from Aden, she's Sunni. My dad is Shia from the north. Why now nobody can go to the other parts?
Yeah.
How Yemen became like this place. I told you in the beginning of my speech that if you want me to summarize Yemen, I would say that you'll find people can be happy without spending money. It's true. People in Yemen used to like dancing a lot, used to like music a lot. We never been like that extreme in Yemen. Even when there was extreme groups in Yemen, you'll find people themselves fighting against extreme. What's happening now? I think we are in a very dark place. I don't know how Yemen will be actually recovering from it. Go to the news, the American news. See how many times Yemen now is mentioned. Almost none.
Yeah.
So it's the forgotten war. And I think it will keep doing like this.
I read your book, and I read it because a friend of mine a couple of years ago said, this is the best book I read all year. And I'm just wondering if your book has been translated into Arabic. Has anybody in your country that you know of been able to read your book?
Thank you. So my book has been translated, as I said, for 7 languages, but not Arabic, not Hebrew. I received an offer to translate my book in Hebrew. I refuse for that unless if I can translate my book in Arabic. I hope one day my book will be translated in Arabic. And it's hard. I was talking today with some friends about Abrahamic House, my organization. How many people are supporting it from Islam, from my own religion? Almost 1 or 2 only. Not because they don't care about interfaith, but because it's a new concept. I think from my book, from the suffering that I had, it's a lot of like Arabic publishers. I didn't see interest from them to translate my book. And I hope one day the book will be translated. Because one thing, every time I go talk in universities and I meet Arabic students and they know about my story, I can tell you they are so connected with me because I'm talking exactly about the things they want to talk about. So I hope one day my book will be translated to Arabic for sure. The movie won't be out. I think it will be like have subtitles in Arabic, and that would help.
Do you know when the movie will be released?
There is a strike right now in Hollywood, which I hated, but I am with the rights for writers and actors to have their freedom of income and stability. I hope the strike will end soon for the writers and actors to have their own rights, and the movie will be done soon. We finished the script. The script is so beautiful. Josh Singer, by the way, he wrote the script of a movie called Spotlight. He actually won the Oscar for that movie. And the way how he wrote The Fox Hunt, he wrote it in a very beautiful way. Sometimes I'm thinking like, damn, it's more beautiful than my book. So I can't wait for it to be done.
Who do you want to play you?
Today someone said to me, Brad Pitt. No, I mean, sometimes I think they have some struggle in casting for the movie because they couldn't find someone handsome like me playing my role. But, no, I mean, for me, I really don't care about who will play my role. And I know that there is big names, and I really appreciate they want to act my role in the movie. But what I really care is about the message that's happening in the movie. I love the way how Georgie end our conversation by having something from the Talmud and the Quran. I think the movie might end in a nice way like this.
Yeah.
I shouldn't say that. Delete it.
Has the reestablishment of diplomatic relations between Iran and Saudi Arabia done anything to help the situation in Yemen?
Good question.
I think it made it worse. There is no airstrikes anymore, which is a good thing. So my family are not afraid from bombs or things like that. But it gave more power and legal action for Houthis to exist and for other extreme groups also to exist. The truth is, if you ask me, I wish if Houthis are not exist. Do you know the logo of the Houthis? What's the logo of the Houthis? So here is the logo of the Houthis. Death to America, death to Israel, damn the Jews. These are the ones who, because of the deal, they have now a legal status in Yemen.
So here you are in the land of free speech. How do you process the vitriol, the anger, the hate that you read about every day in this country in the name of free speech? Does it bother you desperately because you came from such a desperate country?
Thank you for asking this question. So, you know how many months it took me to write my book? 6 months. And the reason behind that, I was telling George about it in the green room, because most of the things in the book was already in Facebook. It was the messages between me and Daniel and me and Justin, so you can already know what happened, exactly what day. It was easy to write it down. Everyone was telling me, Mohammed, you need to see a therapist to speak about what's happening to you. And I really think the book was the therapy for me to write what happened. But right now, I see a therapist every week, once, because of the anger that I see in the United States. I need to be honest with you. I'm optimistic, of course, and that's why I keep doing Abrahamic House and everything like that. But I'm afraid. Whenever I see things about elections, it makes me anxious, and I feel like what's going to happen. Actually, so when the protesters came to the Capitol Hill, for the protesting the election results, you know what I did? I traveled to Mexico for 3 months. Because I thought that what happened exactly in Yemen, it will happen again in the United States. Thank God it didn't happen. And I meant it really, guys, when I said to you, the most important thing that we have in the United States is the freedom of speech and democracy. And I think we really need to fight for it. Not fight by fight, but fight to protect it. That this America will be always like this. So I wish if I have an answer for you where my feelings is. One day I feel like nothing will happen to America because it's protected by God. I really do believe in this. But the other time when I read the news, I feel like just, oh my God, we're going in a really dark place. And I hope I'm mistaken.
Should social media companies like Facebook do more to suppress hate speech on their platforms?
100%. But I think also there should be an education for people how can use social media. Because I think individuals are using social media in the wrong way. Facebook is a platform, and it's like a knife. You can use it to cut fruit and have something benefit from it, or you can do something very bad. And I think, unfortunately, a lot of users who are using Facebook, they're using it in a very bad way, and that's why we see all these hate messages happening. I will encourage you, if you want to see a good side from social media, I'm not doing propaganda for my organization, but follow Abrahamic House and see the comments that we receive, see what's happening in our community. I think that will give you a hope. We need to have the spotlights on such positive news more than negative news. What's happening, and I'm sorry for saying this, George, but I think also the media, the television, newspaper, is actually a big part of the hate speech that we have here in the United States. Because here is the thing. If you ask anyone now, who's Andrew Tate? Everyone knows who's Andrew Tate. But if you ask them about Muhammad or someone who's doing peace building or interfaith, no, there is no spotlight about it. Always there is spotlight about hate and ignorance instead of love and compassion. And I think that's a big problem that we have here.
So my question is, have you been to Israel and are you planning to go to Israel?
Yes, I've been in Israel. It was a short visit for 3 days. The first impression that I didn't want to go out from my hotel because I was thinking that I would be killed. I am an activist, and I changed my point of view and what I've been taught back in Yemen. But no matter what happened, what you've been taught as a kid, it will be still with you. And when I was in Israel, I was afraid that, I will see someone who's attacking me or something like that. It didn't happen. But I need to say one thing that happened to me, and I need to, not to you all. I had small accident in the airport, racism, mostly, because the way how I look, there is 2 lines. If you've been in Israel, in the airport, there's 2 lines. One line for people who looks white Jewish, and one line for people who doesn't look white Jewish. I was in the other line, and the treatment that I had, it wasn't the best. And I understand it came from security and other things. But I said Israel has a lot of way to improve it. What's happening right now in the political environment in Israel, I'm really scared. Yeah. Israel is not the country that I was hoping that I'll always speak about and say, like, I've been there and I saw this. What's happening now in Israel is something different. I hope the Israelis will be able to figure it out because it's the only democracy that we have really in the Middle East, and I hope it will continue to be a democracy.
George, you spent most of your career in conflict zones around the world. I'm certain that you've got pages and pages of questions in there. I wonder if we could turn the mic back to you for a moment, and we'd love to know what questions you'd like to ask.
No, well, thank you. As a correspondent with a lot of experience in conflict zones, I was physically sickened by the January 6th insurrection at the U.S. Capitol. I thought, my God, this is third world crap, This is not the United States I grew up in. And I'm just wondering, to what degree did that watching that trigger your PTSD from Yemen?
That's why I see therapists now every week. No, I will say something that when I was seeing this protesting happen in the capital, there was a group say, Jews will not replace us.
Jews will not replace, right. Yeah.
And this is the same message, actually, the Houthis are saying. It will not start by just saying that, we don't want, for example, this to be president because of we don't believe him is about president. I think the most amazing thing about the United States is the elections. Because no matter what happens, you know that democracy exists. And that's what I love about it. Right now, I don't know what will happen, honestly, in the next election. I'm a little bit, don't have any view. Hopefully, when I will be American citizen, I will have view. That's a good thing to say.
Well, I think the thing we've discovered about democracy in this country, and the thing the Israelis are discovering in their country, is that democracy is always a struggle. It's a continual struggle, and you have to continually defend it, right? You can't take it for granted. And I think, immigrants who become naturalized citizens do not take this country for granted.
At all, but I'm so proud also of immigrants and refugees who are here in the United States, because you will see them really, really hard trying to keep democracy as it is in the United States in a lot of ways. From my perspective, I know a lot of Yemenis, for example, always go to the elections to participate in their votes. One thing that, if you allow me to speak about it, George, is that it was really a surprise for me that not a lot of Americans actually like go vote for their own. You have vote, guys. In Yemen, we don't have, my vote is cost, like it's nothing. But here, it has something. You can change something happening. Why you don't vote?
Yeah.
Why people don't do it? It's one of the few countries that you can actually practice this amazing right. And I'm just like really eager, like, to understand why in America people are not voting. Is it laziness? Is it they don't understand what's actually elections all about? Or is it they don't believe in democracy? I don't know.
Yeah, that never ceases to surprise me too. Did you see the play Hamilton ever?
Yes.
There's a line in there, immigrants, we get the job done. I think you're getting the job done.
Thank you. Thank you.
How much more time do we got?
We've got about 5 minutes, and then we've got a special treat here right before we close out. So we've got about 5 minutes left. Would you take one more?
Sure, we can take one more question.
Mohammed, why don't you write an op-ed for some of the major newspapers in the country on that topic of why don't we vote?
Yeah.
And speak about it from your perspective, coming from a country where you can't.
Thank you. I talked actually with my publicist about it. And it's not because of the advice that I received or something like that, but I think it's better when I became American. I think that's the first thing that I want to write about it, and like how much I'm eager to vote for it.
George, if you've got more questions, we've got a few more minutes.
Question over here.
Yeah, so you mentioned that you believe that social media platforms should do more to suppress hate speech. My question is, who do you think has the right to make those decisions about what can and can't be said?
Thank you. There is, in Colorado, yesterday, my friend, now I forget your name, can you imagine? We went to the cell, and we were talking about how can you know what's hate speech, and how do you know when it's not hate speech. Hate speech is when someone is trying to encourage someone to basically harm others. And it's easy. You're a human being, you have a mind. Everyone has mind, and you can understand when this is hate speech or not. For example, there's someone I was listening to, and he was talking about how Muslims, they shouldn't pray in the United States. They don't have the right to pray in the United States. People will say that maybe it's not hate speech. It is a hate speech, because you want people to not practice who they are. I really, and your question is really good. I am not in position of like saying who they have the right or not. I believe that everyone has the right to post about it. But in one thing, educate yourself before you post about anything. Sometimes people post about something and they don't know the harm of it. And I really believe if people know about the harm they can one post do, or one act can do for others, you might not be able to do it.
Okay, we're going to thank them in just a moment. I was remiss in the opening remarks not to extend our gratitude to Johannes and his team at the Sonnenalp Hotel. I'd like to reiterate our gratitude to American Jewish Committee, and of course to B'nai Vel. And now I'd like to turn things over to Rabbi Joel Newman for a special presentation.
Thank you. I'm just going to take a quick minute to tell you about what we have here. 2,600 years ago, the legend goes that Jeremiah, when he was in exile in Babylonia, went to Yemen, and he took with him the Jews, the Israelites, to Yemen, and that was the first community that was there. So when we had an opportunity to receive this Torah, this is 300 years old, it came from Yemen, and it went for the Wahhab family had it written 300 years ago. In Yemen, there didn't have cows to usually write a Torah, but they have deer. So there's 55 deer skins, which this was written. It's very, very rare and unusual. It's about a little over 300 years old, written with a reed, because they didn't have geese to write with, so it was written with a reed and it's beautiful. So I'm going to open it up just for those that would like to see it. It went from Yemen to Egypt, from Egypt then went to Israel, and sat in Israel until it became a state for another 100 years. And then from Israel, it made its way to us. So it's part of our congregation, and the Strauss family are the ones who said, let's bring this from 300 years ago in Yemen. You get to see what a real scroll looked like from the Wahhab, is that how you pronounce it? W-A-H-A-B?
Yes.
It was written in the north of Yemen and made its way from Yemen to Egypt to Brooklyn to us. So if you'd like to see it, we're just going to open it up and we'll have the Strauss family help you do that.
You can keep that applause going, please, for George Lewis and Mohammed Al Samawi.